Chevrolet Task Force trucks for 58. New hustle, new muscle, new style. Trucks with a broad-shouldered look. Rugged Chevrolet trucks whose massive front-end styling promises peak performance.
If you tell your friends you just bought a Chevy Colorado, it might not get much of their attention. On the other hand, if you showed them this price sticker, I think that might get their attention. And that was the price of admission on this particular vehicle. And here's our view from the front. Nice looking rig, especially with this red paint and black outlines. Sharp looking vehicle from the side and rear too. In all fairness, the base price starts around $43,000 for the single cab, but we had a lot of options here. If you want 4 doors, that costs more, of course. $3,500 extra for the diesel engine. We'll talk about that later. Optional roll bars. And the cool factor of having the big giant spare tire located in the bed where everybody can see it. We'll talk about that later too. This is a heavy-duty off-road rig designed to compete with the Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with the TRD Pro package, or the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. All three in the same price bracket. Here's a list of equipment you get with the ZR package, starting with 17-inch wheels, 31-inch 265-65R17 Wrangler tires, a beefed rear axle, bunch of skid plates under there somewhere, locking differential in the rear, locking differential in the front, hill descent control, a 2-inch lift, lots of ground clearance under there, a 3.5-inch wider track, tow hooks, of course, and Multimatic dynamic suspension, spool, valve, dampers. Did I say that right? And I guess you could call this a step bar, although it's more likely to protect the bodywork when you're banging large rocks. Or perhaps it does both. Obviously, with the roll bar and spare tire setup here, we're limited as far as cargo capacity. If you took the spare tire system out, you could put a cover on top to protect your gear, get a lot more stuff in here. Or if you took the roll bars off, you could put a camper shell, which will allow you to put more stuff in to protect it. Removing at least one of these would help, or both. But Chevrolet wanted me to have all the options to evaluate. That's what they sent. And I'm really not complaining. I wasn't going to haul plywood anyway. As long as I have these spare gas cans, I'm happy. As always, the first thing we do before we drive a test vehicle is take the headlights out in the dark and see how they perform. We'll do that right now. It's dark enough, so we'll take these headlights out, see what they do. Here we have the low beams on a building 100 feet away. More than adequate. Decent height. High beams. Plenty of light there. Now we'll go to a longer distance. Here we have the brights on a building 300 feet away. Not the brightest light I've ever seen, but still illuminates everything quite well. Go low beam. Adequate for city driving. Overall, no complaints. There are 2 engines available on the ZR. Base engine is a 3.6 gasoline V6 with an 8-speed automatic, putting out 308 horsepower, 275 foot-pounds of torque. Fuel economy is 16 city, 18 highway, with an average of 17. We got the optional 2.8-liter turbo diesel with a 6-speed automatic, 191 horsepower, which obviously is less than the gas engine, but with 369 foot-pounds of torque, lots of pulling power. 19 city, 22 highway, and 20 overall is what the rating is. If you want to see what the real-world fuel economy is, you came to the right video, because we're going to rack a lot of miles on. I'm shooting for 800, so there'll be no question what the real mileage is on this engine. In fact, driving where I am right now, we went from an elevation of 1,000 feet to an elevation of 8,000 feet. Climbing all the way, passing everybody. I didn't care about fuel economy. I just put my foot in it because I was in a hurry to get here. And I got 20.5 mpg. I would say that's very impressive. And remember, that was going uphill. We have a return trip coming up, going downhill. We'll total the mileage, divide by 2, and get the real highway fuel consumption figure for you. So don't go away. I find it interesting that while the diesel puts out far more torque, which is what you want for towing, the tow rating is the same for both engines, 5,000 pounds. I'll give you my thoughts on this after we rack up some miles. I'll also have some thoughts on these optional lights that come with the roll bar package. I don't know what they're supposed to be aimed at, but with the roof here, I don't see how they're ever going to make contact with the road. If I can find the switch to turn them on, we'll find out. This concludes part 1 of our video, which is the show and tell segment. Tomorrow morning we're going to do part 2. Lots of driving, performance evaluation, and lots of fuel economy figures. So don't go away. Before we get to our driving session, I have a piece of advice for you if you're driving a Chevy Colorado ZR2 and find yourself with a flat tire. A problem I occasionally run into on a vehicle with a raised suspension is the factory jack isn't tall enough to lift the vehicle off the ground in order to properly change the tire. Now the good news is, this isn't a problem with this jack. It can raise the truck more than adequate, but you have to jack it up all the way, which makes it unstable. So, if you're going to drive a ZR2, I suggest you carry one of 2 things with you: a cement block or some wooden blocks. With these devices, you only have to raise the jack up about halfway, which makes it more stable. And of course, you have a wider platform, so it won't sink in the dirt. Saves you a lot of grief, trust me. Can you say desolate? 8,000 square miles of nothing. You don't want to get stranded out here. This is why you need a good 4x4 in a country like this, otherwise you'll end up like our little friend here, and nobody will ever find you. Actually, I was in the mood for some steak. Even had a name tag. Oh well. Hey, your friend had too much tequila and passed out down there. You ought to go get him. Oh yeah. I'm not going to bend over in front of you, buddy. By the way, if you hear a lot of rattling noises while we're going off-road, it's not the truck, it's all the equipment I have in the cab. Overall, the body structure of the Colorado is pretty solid, no issues. Ordinarily, you would need a 4x4 to get on roads like this, but with the wide tires we have on a ZR2, I can do most of this in 2-wheel drive, no problem. We put about 60 miles of off-road driving, most of it in 2-wheel drive. Let's pull over and see what we're getting as far as fuel economy goes. 18.4, not bad. If you're in the habit of taking high-speed corners on a gravel road like this, I suggest you do not do it in 2-wheel drive if you're driving a ZR2. These tires will spin out, traction control or no traction control. You want to keep it in 4-wheel drive. No big deal. That's what this was made for anyway, right? This isn't the smoothest riding truck I've ever driven, but does an excellent job absorbing these washboard impacts. And I guess that's what the suspension was designed to do, and it does it quite well. I was never able to figure out how to get these lights to work, but it's just as well I don't drive at night anyway. Not off-road. Because if you do, you can end up going over ledges like this. In which case, I'll never find you or your body. Nice view. So I'll forget about the lights. If you bought them, I'll let you figure it out. One of the advantages of a small truck like a Colorado can fit in tight spaces and narrow roads like this. Even with the wider wheelbase of the ZR2 and the wider tires that go along with it, I don't have a problem here. A full-size truck would not fit down this road, not without scratching the paint off anyway. Not a problem here. And thanks to the compact size of the Colorado, we were able to go down that narrow trail, find this nice spot at the edge of the Grand Canyon, all for free. Can drive down here in a full-size truck, a good reason to check out the smaller Colorado. Oh, and by the way, there were some big rocks on that trail, but not a problem with the ZR2 ground clearance. Thought I'd mention that. If you're in the habit of climbing steep grades, this diesel can't be beat. All the torque you need at the bottom end, and just not even breathing hard. Also helps to have a good set of tires if you have a drop off like that. And away we go. I wanted to take this rock home, but it doesn't seem to fit in the back of the bed. No room. I think I'll have to take this spare tire out. We're done with our off-pavement driving. Time to get back on the freeway and return home. And our fuel economy driving off-road was 18 mpg. Far better than any gasoline power plant I've ever driven. On our first highway trip, we started at 1,000 feet elevation, climbing to 8,000 feet elevation. Got just over 20 mpg. Now we're making our return trip from 8,000 to 1,000, and we'll see what we get. I don't think these off-road tires were intended to stick on wet pavement. Good thing we have a four-wheel drive system that's designed for the street. Get a bit of more traction here. This has to be the record for the dumbest sign I've ever read in my life. No jumping from bridge. No kidding, it's only a 1,000-foot drop. Good thing I read that sign. I was thinking about diving in and taking a little nip. Well, here it's a $100 fine. Good luck collecting it from the guy who jumps. We've racked up 100 miles on a return trip. We're already up to 22 miles per gallon. Hopefully we'll get it to go higher. Stay tuned. A pit stop for some scenery. Not much out here, just a view. Here's the fuel economy on our return highway trip. If you recall, the original trip was going from 1,000 feet elevation to 8,000 feet elevation, where we got 20.5 mpg. On a return trip from 8,000 feet to 1,000 feet elevation, we got 22.8. Add those two up, divide by 2, it's 21.5 mpg. By comparison, the EPA claims 22 mpg on the highway, so I would say it's rather close and impressive. We were shooting to do 800 miles on this test. We just made it. Average economy for the entire time, 19.9 mpg. More than reasonable. I think it's time for a wash job to get all the mud off this. Yeah, that looks like a safe load. Not gonna fall out in front of me. So after a week of driving, here are my thoughts on the Colorado. So is it worth the extra $3,500 to spring for the diesel over the gasoline V6? Depends on your driving habits. If you're towing a lot of loads or climbing steep grades, the diesel certainly comes in handy. It will pay for itself around 80,000 miles of driving. As for myself, as much as I like the diesel, I'd probably settle for the gasoline V6 because I don't tow anything and don't haul heavy loads. For those who want to compare this to the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, the Toyota does have some advantages, but the Colorado ZR2 has advantages too. Number one, I think the ZR2 is definitely a better looking truck. Everywhere I took this, I got thumbs up. lot of people coming up wanting to look at it, sit in it. Number 2, the seats in the Tacoma are not adjustable for height, which is kind of weird. The seats in the Colorado are fully adjustable in every position you would want. Number 3, we get a nicer looking interior. And number 4, Toyota's a good truck, but they don't discount much at the dealer. GM dealers discount pretty heavily. You can get a far better deal on a Colorado ZR2 than you can a Toyota Tacoma TRD. And number 5, it goes without saying, you can always order a diesel engine, something you cannot get in other compact pickup trucks. Overall, this is a nice off-roader. I hated giving it back. Here are some links to other diesel trucks we've driven lately. Just click and watch.